The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
How are you feeling today? Are you feeling alive and energetic? Or lethargic and weak? Listen to your heart. Welcome to the Healing Whisper, a return to peace. Your host for the hour is Dr. Marianne Chase. When we fail to understand and work on the root cause of our stress and illness, we seem to be in a never-ending spiral of poor health and low energy. It's time to reharness that potential in order to live a better life. Now, here is Dr. Marianne.
Hello and welcome to the show. I am so glad that you can join me today. Today we have a very special, and this will be a great show if you're interested in healing through music and sound. And heck, it's going to be a great show even if you aren't interested in healing through sound. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind everybody that you can catch me on my Facebook page, The Healing Whisper, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and my website, thehealingwhisper.com. Well, today my guest is Ted Winslow. And so welcome, Ted. Welcome to the show.
Dr. Marianne, good morning, and thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Well, before we get into the information about your music, let me just tell everybody a little bit about you. He has over 25 years of experience in the music business. He holds a BS in music and audio engineering from the University of Colorado, my personal alma mater, except I went to University of Colorado for dental school. Anyway, in addition to his musical background, Ted runs Big Country Productions, which is a division of Big Country Publishing. It's located right here in Colorado. He works with organizations and clients from around the world where he produces commercials, writes music, produces videos, builds custom internet TV stations, records, and produces audio books. But beyond that, Ted is a leader in the field of sound healing with his best-selling CDs, Solfeggio Sound Healing from Earthly Frequencies, Harmonia Solfeggio Sound Healing from Divine Frequencies, Angelic Sound Healing, and Vocal Toning with the Angels. And all of his CDs are available on iTunes, Amazon, Tower Records, and other worldwide distribution networks. So again, welcome, Ted. And I kind of abbreviated all of that, and it's quite an extensive background. But let me ask this question right off the bat. How did you get interested in using music and sound as healing?
Well, I started out back in the 80s playing as a studio musician. And I was also playing with a band where we were entertaining and doing showcases for a couple of the record companies. And this was like back in the 80s and the early 90s. And as I was going through obtaining my degree, I'd come across some stuff that had talked about different frequencies and sound healing. And as a young student, was always curious to explore what is sound healing and the possibilities of what we could do with those frequencies. And it kind of dawned on me. And so you can imagine the 80s, as the hair bands, as they were kind of termed back then, we all had this long hair and bangle bracelets were in, and we had the towers of amplifiers that we were doing. And so I can go into band practice and say, hey guys, let's talk about sound healing today and what we can do with this and how we can kind of like start to affect some of our audience. And all these guys were looking at me like, have you lost your mind? So it never took off with the band at that point. And it's funny now because I kind of go back and look at it, and I'll talk a little bit about tunings. But all of us had been tuning to this frequency that was 440, which is a very dissonant frequency. So here I've been talking about doing other tunings and experimenting with them, but everybody was in the 440 tuning. And we would play a show. At the time, we'd be headlining, and so you'd get off the stage sometimes at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd find that I'd go back home, and I couldn't sleep that night. And, of course, I had to get up and still go back through school and whatnot. And it just was wearing on me. I never had enough energy. And granted, I had the energy when I was playing with those dissonant frequencies, and band members kept coming and going. So it's probably these dissonant frequencies that were affecting us. At some points, we all started kind of hating each other and then leaving we can do better or go out on our own. So a couple of years later, I'm with my wife, and we're going through an international trade show. And I hear this beautiful sound resonating through all of the aisles, and I now have to figure out what the sound is. So I go in search of the sound, and it turns out to be it was a couple people who were ringing some crystal bowls. So, of course, that was not in my hairband world at the time. I'm like,
that was a little out there, wasn't it?
Way out there. And I could instantly feel, I'm like, here this crystal bowl can hit me with this effect, and my body is feeling and drinking up these frequencies, which was quite the opposite of standing next to 100-watt amplifiers. And I'm like, I fell in love with it. I'm like, I became on a mission. I had to pursue this. And so I look at my wife, and I'm like, I've got to get these crystal bowls. And she's like, oh, God, here we go again. You know, as a musician, we have to get every instrument that there is out there and play it and just go crazy with it and the creative aspect of it. So I got a whole set of crystal bowls and started playing with those. And one day, I just kind of woke up. I looked over at my wife, and I said, I've got to ride to Alaska on my motorcycle. And she's like, she's such a great spouse. Any wife that lets their guy take off and go 5,000 miles on a motorcycle, that my hat's off to them. So she's very supportive of me to be able to go on the spiritual journey. And it was really on that journey that it was like, I've got to get back into the recording studio, and I've got to take a whole different direction, and I've got to start recording. And so it led to that process that I rode and rode and rode and rode. It was like 12 days. I did 5,000 miles, went from Colorado all the way up to Alaska, and then came all the way back down again. And it was funny because I had about 20 guys that were going to go with me, and each one of them, you know, a week later, I can't go. Another person a week later, I can't go. So it was truly meant to be, and I came back, and it was like I was on this mission to start dealing with these frequencies. So I started playing with the first frequency, which was 528 hertz. Now, if that's okay, if I can talk a little bit about hertz here and what these frequencies are.
You know what? I want to talk about that, definitely. But I also want everybody to know that to hang on, because we do have samples of the music. So just before the breaks, we're going to listen to the samples. So the very first one we're going to hear just before the next break will be at a 432 hertz. So anyway, that leads me into what's this about hertz?
Okay, so what I found out with dealing with the hertz is that each hertz is going to have its own frequency. Those who've been in photography and understand color, they're very similar with music. And so each music with that hertz is going to have a certain frequency, and in that frequency is going to be a certain note, which musical terms is A through G. Any one of those 12 notes is going to be pertinent to that frequency, where it's going to have an overtone value that's going to be completely harmonious to that frequency. So 440 hertz is what is most commonly known today that everybody does their tune up their instruments to. So if you stand into a concert situation, the violin players are going to tune up to 440 with the piano, and that's like A above middle C. Guitars will tune to that, and so that's the standard concert pitch. So Joseph Goebbels was a German politician and a Third Reich minister of propaganda during the time of 1933 and 45. And so he's rumored to have implemented the 440 pitch. And he was stating at that time that this is of extraordinary importance. So in 1939, the British Standard Institute officially adopted this. Now, the British Standard Institute is supposed to be some of the greatest ears, musical ears, in the world. And if you can imagine, music kind of coming out of classical and Baroque areas was coming out of Vienna and Germany and Italy and all of that. And so it was kind of the epicenter over there with my personal opinion with where this music is coming from. And here they're going with 440, which is a very dissonant pitch. And then it was also promoted by the Rockefeller Foundation. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, music bioenergetically affects our body and our chemistry, our psychoneuroimmunology and our health. And now our body is vibrating musically and audibly and subliminally to these frequencies that are the 440's aggression and dissonance. So I kind of started thinking a little bit more about that, back to talking about when I was in the band, why I was like agitated and couldn't sleep at night. And it's like, well, our body, water and frequency impact all of life. And so our body is made up about 70% of water. So we're training ourselves with these frequencies. So,
well, Ted, let's talk about the frequency of this piece that we're going to listen to here in just a minute. It's at 432. Now, so what does that frequency do to our bodies?
432 is going to be basically the universal frequency for everything. It's coming from with the universe, and it's the main big frequency of love and joy. Now, each frequency is going to affect each person a little bit different, but that's kind of the premise without going to too much. It vibrates on the principles of the golden mean of pi, which was derived through mathematics, geometry, and numerical series. It was actually discovered by Leonardo Fibonacci, and it appears as well in the human body, animals, plants, DNA, and as I mentioned with our solar system. So it's kind of the architecture, in my personal opinion, of music.
Okay, so let's go and listen to this little snippet from your music. It's called Peaceful Journey. It's just a 2-minute snippet. And after that's over, we'll go to the break, and then we'll be back. So folks, don't go away.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Are you feeling stuck? Sometimes we just need a little help from a friend. Go beyond ordinary healing and experience the extraordinary healing journey possible with custom Healing Code coaching with Dr. Marianne Chase. Visit thehealingwhisper.com. Dr. Chase's coaching sessions can be conducted via Skype or by telephone. If you have half an hour to devote to getting yourself out of that rut, Dr. Marianne is ready to be that friend. Visit thehealingwhisper.com and click coaching.
Tune in every Tuesday for C. diff, spores, and more with hosts Nancy Kerala and Dr. Chandrabali Ghosh. Our program is to provide information about C. diff, healthcare-associated infections, and more. Nancy is a C. diff survivor, healthcare professional, and the founder and executive director of the C. diff Foundation. And Dr. Ghosh is the chairperson of research and development for the C. diff Foundation. Together, with their guests, we'll explore infection prevention, treatments, environmental safety, and more. Listen every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to The Healing Whisper, A Return to Peace. If you would like to comment or have a question about our show today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. If you'd rather send an email, our email address is thehealingwhisper@mindspring.com. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Marianne Chase, and my guest today is Ted Winslow, who is a sound healing researcher, producer, audio engineer, musician, singer. He's also a vocal coach and a songwriter. Many, many things. But what we are talking about today is healing through music and sounds and sound waves. Just before the break, we listened to a piece that Ted has composed, and it's Peaceful Journey, and it's at that 432 hertz. And so, Ted, you said something very important that before the break is that this hertz, these frequencies, cause vibrations, and they show it in water, in which we are mostly water in our bodies, and some of us more than others. And so let's just explain to our audience a little bit what you mean by hertz and frequencies.
Okay. Well, hertz and frequencies is going to be, for the simple sense of understanding it, is going to be basically like vibrations per second. And so what I've done is I've developed a company. I've trademarked a technology that's called SoundSync Tech. And it's basically customized brainwave technology where I'm able to use binaural beats and compositions, tuning, state-of-the-art recording technologies that I use as an engineer for the frequencies through this. So, for example, Peaceful Journey is actually recorded, that's the 432 hertz, that's going to be 432 in vibrations per second. That's particular frequency, particular key signature that's going to be able to affect us. In conjunction with that, I've also recorded into that theta and alpha. So those who are not familiar with theta, it's basically a frequency of 4 to 7 hertz that's going to be able to affect us. And it's the border between consciousness and the subconscious world. So this helps us to get into a more relaxed state of mind. The 440, again, makes us all dissonance. We're repairing ourselves with the 432. Now I'm bringing in theta with this, and so that we can try to tap into the state of consciousness to access and influence all these powerful subconscious parts of ourselves that probably normally are going to be inaccessible in our waking minds. And then the alpha waves that I've incorporated, and I just did it on this album because I've done theta on my other albums, and this one I wanted to push the boundaries because I've never seen anybody be able to put alpha and theta on the same albums. And so alpha has 8 to 13 hertz, which is the normal activity of the brain when we're conscious and then we're relaxed. So we all understand sound healing, that we can play like a medicine drum, or as I explained, with a crystal bowl. And that's great. Vocal toning is, personally, I think is the best if you don't have music to be able to my music to put on and listen to. But you're getting one part of the healing aspect from that particular instrument, and you're getting that one frequency from that, which I kind of like to make the analogy. It's kind of like a smoothie. So if you make a carrot juice smoothie, you're going to get the benefits of the carrot juice. But if you put in pineapple, apple, ginger, nutmeg, turmeric, you're going to get a lot more nutrients. And that's kind of that's actually the approach that I've taken with my sound healing music and the frequency. So we're getting these vibrations per second that are coming in and affecting us that we're not used to in a normal day of life. Now, to go one step a little bit further with that is that I knew when I was composing this and writing it how much it was changing me. It was helping people be able to sleep. It was changing their moods during the day. Well, thinking about our media, we're completely bombarded with negative energies that's coming out from the media. So
absolutely.
We already know Dr. Emoto's best-selling book, The Hidden Messages in Water.
Yeah.
He's able to show through crystallography how negative words can affect and change the molecular structure of the water right there. And then he slices it very thinly and is able to show it. And then it kind of looked like mud, as he just explains. And then he starts giving love and praise to it. And the water instantly starts changing to beautiful colors. And so the sound healing, as we go to our daily jobs and we're not getting the praises that we probably should be getting for what we're doing, or we've got family drama going on, friend drama, whatever substance abuse issues, it helps to clear out that negative energy and put you back into that normal state so you're able to connect to your higher self. And on my website, I was able to show through biophotonic imaging, which is a study that I was able to use this scientific technology. It comes out of, this particular one comes out of Russia. And it can show how it changes the body so that you can see the energy levels increasing. And so I would have clients.
Yeah, I've seen those videos that you've put up about how the bodies are changed through various and different things. And Ted, I have to say, it is fascinating. And I really would encourage everybody to go to your website just to see those videos. So what is that website?
Okay. If you go to tedwinslow.com, just TEDWINSLOW.com, I've got my albums on there, and I've got those studies that are there that we put into video. And they're basically, I've had clients come in or worked with people who have been having problems and wanted to see how the sound healing, my particular sound healing, would be able to affect them and their energy. And so, like one study that's on there, we all know Las Vegas. I'm sure a lot of people like Las Vegas, but it's a different kind of energy. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I had, she was about a 70-year-old woman, and I had the opportunity to be able to run this biophotonic imaging off of her and do this test with her as she got off of the plane. And then I had her listen to one of my albums, and then you could instantly see how it changed. Then she went to sleep with the album and then woke up with it. And so I did these different tests that were on her. I've done kids and all sorts of different stuff with it. But tedwinslow.com, it can kind of give you a better understanding of some of the biophotonic imaging that I've done with that.
And tell listeners, you are very generously offering access to one of your albums on your website. So tell our listeners how to get that album, what it is, and then a couple of minutes before the break, we're going to play a little snippet of the piece from that album. So go ahead.
Okay. So the album that I like to give away is Angelic Sound Healing. And particularly the reason why I like giving this away is because I was really tapped into my higher self and felt a greater presence when I was recording this. Some interesting stuff had happened in the studio, which I can go in at a later time. But I am so blessed to be able to. I'm working on my 13th album, and I just love doing this, and I love helping everybody, and I love the changes and the feedback that I'm getting. And it's kind of a gift to people so that they can listen to it and have a better understanding of what this is that I'm doing. And this one actually is been one of my Amazon best-selling albums as well. So you can get it for free. You can download it free in the MP3 format. What you're going to have to do is go onto my website at tedwinslow.com, and you're going to go into the store, and you'll select Angelic Sound Healing, and you'll check out with it. And when you check out, there's going to be a place to enter a coupon code. And in that code, you have to put in radio, RADIO, and it will zero out the balance. You don't have to put in a credit card number. If you do, please don't, because I have a hard time going back and doing that. You did it wrong. Just make sure you put in radio as a zero balance, and then you can go ahead and proceed to the checkout. Now, one more thing to say with that. Sometimes my website gets hammered with people getting downloads, purchasing, or whatnot. And so when you do it, don't click on all 10 of them, because sometimes it'll drop off number 7 and it'll drop off number 8. Download 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, and then do another 2 or 3 at a time. If you don't get all of them, just go back in, repeat the process, and you'll get them all back for free. So that's my gift. I think Higher Spirit wanted that everybody to have that.
Well, let's listen to this piece from your Angelic Sound Healing album, and it's called Aerial Manifestation.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Are you feeling stuck? Sometimes we just need a little help from a friend. Go beyond ordinary healing and experience the extraordinary healing journey possible with custom Healing Code coaching with Dr. Marianne Chase. Visit thehealingwhisper.com. Dr. Chase's coaching sessions can be conducted via Skype or by telephone. If you have half an hour to devote to getting yourself out of that rut, Dr. Marianne is ready to be that friend. Visit thehealingwhisper.com and click coaching.
Every day, you hear so much about different aspects of the health and wellness field. One day, you hear one thing, and the next day, you hear something that contradicts what you heard the day before. How do you know what's right? Try tuning in to The Cutting Edge of Health and Wellness today with Dr. Neil Nathan. Our goal is to educate and explore this field with guest experts in order to help you take control of your health and well-being. Listen Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Voice America Health and Wellness.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to The Healing Whisper, A Return to Peace. If you would like to comment or have a question about our show today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. If you'd rather send an email, our email address is thehealingwhisper@mindspring.com. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Marianne Chase, and I have my guest today, Ted Winslow, who is a sound healing researcher, engineer, producer. The list goes on and on. But before we get back into that conversation, I'd just like to remind everybody that you can catch me on my page, The Healing Whisper, Facebook, as well as Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and my website, thehealingwhisper.com. I'd also like to remind everybody I do have on voiceamerica.tv a gardening show, which is about gardening mindfully. And so, Ted, we just listened to Angelic Sound Healing clip, which was at 777 hertz, which for those of us in the Christian community recognize 777 as complete and completeness. And so that, I think, is absolutely, and you were telling me that this angelic sound healing, all of that was given to you during a particularly interesting time in your life.
Yeah, every September or so, I like to go on to kind of like a trip up into the Rocky Mountains. I love the mountains. And I'll go backpacking and just kind of sleep off of the ground, throw down an air mattress, and I'll raise a tarp. And it helps me to become more centered and grounded and get away from all the regular hubbub day in life. And it was that point I started having all these different messages come in. And especially with that track, because I kind of laugh as I think of the form tree hugger, but that was the point that I was literally walking through these trees and just felt this immense love coming through. And so that's kind of how that started coming through. I spent like about 4 days just kind of backpacking and coming back and being exhausted and just being one with nature and you know, drinking out of the rivers and it just was so revitalizing, you know, just exhilarating to be up there and be a part of that. And that's came back, and that's kind of how that album started coming out. A part of that is just connecting with the higher self and being with these frequencies and thinking that we forget about those tunings with the angelic frequencies that they are, 777, 444. So that's how that one came about.
And yeah, I think that is very important to let people know how this music was given to you. So now we've been talking about the hertz, and we have learned about the 432 hertz and your angelic frequencies being the single, triple digits. Earlier in the first segment of the show, you mentioned the 528 hertz. Now, I am familiar with that, and in the energy healing medicine that I use, a lot of times we have I shouldn't say a lot of times, we have available some sound healing frequencies at 528. Now, what is it about 528 that is healing? What are we looking at that way?
Well, 528 is basically known as the miracles for the DNA repair. And I'm going to back up a little bit, because when I was kind of going through and studying with these frequencies off of my first album, I come across these 6 secret solfeggio frequencies. And they are, when I kind of started looking into them, like, what are these numbers? All these numbers had different type of meanings, and they were all interrelated to each other. And you can find this stuff kind of on the web, so I won't waste the time kind of going into those details with the mathematics. But the 6 are all mathematically and harmonically related. And it kind of realized that they've been hidden for years. Again, kind of realizing for so many years I've been tuning with 440. And so here are these 6 frequencies that are ut, re, mi. Okay, now mi is the 528 in this. It's a 6-note scale, so to speak, where they came from. Mi being the third one, which is 528. And mi, M-I, is actually short for miracles, which I kind of found somewhat ironic and, you know, coincidence, so to speak. So we have ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Now, many of you are probably going, you know, la ti do as well. And that expanded from those 6 frequencies when they came out. And I traced them back to different regions throughout history. So they show up one time in 1300 BC in Europe, or in India, and they show up again in 11th century in Europe. And then I found it interesting that in 571, 495 BC, the Greek philosopher, astronomer, mathematician Pythagoras started to experiment as well with all these frequencies. And it's kind of a cool story with how he comes up with it, because here he's kind of like considered the brain of his time. He's traveling through Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Assyria, and Babylon. And Alexandria, the library, unfortunately was burned down, but I can just imagine the information, being Greek, that it would have come out of there. So Pythagoras is walking around one day, whatever town it is, and he starts hearing an anvil being hit with a hammer as at a blacksmith shop. And these sounds and pitches that are coming out, he's hearing them and picking them up, and his brain's processing them with all these different frequencies and stuff. So he goes home, probably like Da Vinci, builds this modern day guitar called a monochord, and he starts working out these frequencies that are on it. So I like to think of Pythagoras as kind of like the godfather of music when it comes to that, because he's really the first one that could trace back. It starts harmonically putting these pitches together and working with them mathematically in all sorts of different ways. And these 6 secret solfeggio frequencies that I was just describing before that, they're the vibration rates for creation and destruction, supposedly. And they're originally mentioned in Numbers in both the Bible and the Torah, and has also been linked to the hymn of John the Baptist. So he believes that these numbers, Pythagoras, again talking about him, he believes that these numbers were actual things that existed in a perfect transcended world beyond time, and that frequencies he was using was a way to help him tap into the divine.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up Pythagoras, because I think a lot of people do not realize how closely associated music is to mathematics. And because you mentioned right at the start of the show the creation, or the use, I should say, of the 440 frequency, and how that affected you negatively as you were in a band and associated with these giant speakers just hammering your body with those frequencies. So it brings me to the question that if we were to sit at a piano and play something in the key of C, which isn't that about where the 528 hertz is?
It is. It's still going to be 1/100th of a certain percentage off of that frequency, though.
Okay. So, but let's just say it is at the right frequency, the piano. Play something in the key of C. Is this more of a healing frequency than playing something in the key of A that's at a 440?
You have to kind of be closer. I found that you have to be closer with the tuning of the instruments on that. So, like, if you're tuned to a 528, A is going to be the harmonic minor of that key of C, if it's tuned to that. I think what you're saying is if you're still tuned at the 440 and you go down and play at the 440 hertz there with the key of C, is that going to help kind of get us through that? It's still going to be mathematically off on that certain frequency, on that certain tuning for a better frequency.
Because the entire piano is tuned to a 440.
Exactly. So, like, I'm teaching my son as I'm teaching him to play guitar, and I don't tune the pianos because I've got access to all sorts of different synthesizers and keyboards, and so now I can digitally retune all of that stuff. But for those guitar players that are out there, or even vocalists, there's a pitch pipe. I had a client that I was working with, and she would go out and she would do some vocal toning in some of her seminars, and she had a stagehand that would blow the 528 pitch, so then she could be in tune with that pitch and be her vocal toning with that. There's a tuner out there called a snark, which if you
Snark.
Yeah, and a snark guitar tuner. Somebody has a funny sense of humor, and but I can go into it and I can program that so that I can get to 444 or I can get to 432, and then mathematically you have to derivate from 440 to get into 528.
So it's not a simple thing to be able to change all of our music to these healing frequencies, simply because back in 1939 the Germans said we're going to go with 440.
Right. And you'd ask about frequency again. I've got a definition here. It says that frequency is a measure of the electricity distinguished by the units of hertz. The body is electrical, and multiple frequencies make up and create it. We all know that with the way our brain works and the muscles and the quick reactions. The vibrational frequency of the mind will determine the vibration at which the body will function. Low vibrations have a greater attractor field to imbalance and disease. Higher ones enable the body to release the holding pattern of imbalance, empowering the body to heal. Infinite love and gratitude has the highest of these frequencies. Well,
that's great, Ted. And speaking of that, let's go and listen to this piece that is at 528, which you say is believed to be DNA repair. Amore mio.
Opinions, options, answers. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
Are you feeling stuck? Sometimes we just need a little help from a friend. Go beyond ordinary healing and experience the extraordinary healing journey possible with custom Healing Code coaching with Dr. Marianne Chase. Visit thehealingwhisper.com. Dr. Chase's coaching sessions can be conducted via Skype or by telephone. If you have half an hour to devote to getting yourself out of that rut, Dr. Marianne is ready to be that friend. Visit thehealingwhisper.com and click coaching.
If you have a loved one that is undergoing treatment for substance abuse or mental illness, you owe it to them and yourself to tune in to 1 Hour at a Time with host Mary Woods. This compassionate and educational talk show will help you help those that you love by better understanding their condition and their personal recovery process. Tune in every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time to 1 Hour at a Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness channel. Recovery begins this hour.
Your life, your health, your network. You're listening to Voice America Health and Wellness.
You are listening to The Healing Whisper, A Return to Peace. If you would like to comment or have a question about our show today, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. If you'd rather send an email, our email address is thehealingwhisper@mindspring.com. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Marianne Chase, and my guest today is Ted Winslow, who is a sound healing researcher and as well as a producer of sound healing MP3s. Just before the break, we were listening to Amore Mio at 528 hertz, which is purported to be the frequency of DNA repair. And I'd also like to remind everybody that Ted has generously offered a free CD, his Angelic Sound Healing CD. And if you go to his website, tedwinslow.com, and in purchasing, the coupon code that you need to put in is radio. So again, thank you, Ted, for the generosity that you had there. Before the break, a little brief thing that you mentioned was a lady that you knew that had a pitch pipe that she would have sounded at 528 hertz because she was singing at a different frequency, which brings up the question of vocal toning. So exactly, what is vocal toning and how does it help us?
Okay, vocal toning, and this is going to be pretty much kind of my definition. There's a lot of definitions that are out there, but it's going to be the self-healing powers that we're using with our voice to resonate through the chambers of our body, which are going to be, we're resonating our bones, we're resonating the mass of our body. I spoke earlier about the water, and it's through the resonance and frequency vibration with our vocal toning that we can start to restore it back to its electromagnetic field of entrainment. So as we're dealing with the 528, we're entraining that body with that and those in that area. And so I've been using this with clients so that they can find their voice who may not have been allowed to really have one. For centuries, toning's been used for self-healing, relaxation, balance, and growth. And it's interrelated with the subconscious mind as well. And on a daily basis, we can hypnotize ourselves with repetitive phrases, such as "I can do this," or "that won't work," or "it will never get paid for what I am worth," which all that is self-conditioning. So we can reverse that with our toning, and by singing, positive affirmations. Nature is sound, and we are nature, and the sound waves are the carriers of our intentions through our natural God-given sound, such as abundance, cell regeneration, relationships, money, restoring energy to ourselves and our planet, and create peace on earth is what I like to think of. I personally use toning when I start to sing in the studio. I'll go through different areas of getting my voice warmed up before I'm singing or doing a performance or something. So I like to use a pre-warm-up with vocal toning. And then I'll go into some vocal exercises. And I find that it helps to not only change my vibration, it's going to warm up my vocal cords, it's going to help loosen up my vocal cords, raise my vibration, help me start projecting my voice. And I have clients that use it for broadcasting, voiceover work, and sometimes before they do interviews.
Well, the thing that I've noticed is that you do have a CD. It's called Vocal Toning with the Angels. Now, by getting this CD, can people teach themselves how to do vocal toning and help begin to heal themselves?
Absolutely, and that was the whole intention behind that album. I put it at the angelic frequencies. I love the angelic frequencies, but the great thing about this is that the first track, there's an intro track that's on it, and it's going to tell you how you can best utilize that, some techniques and pronunciations and sounds that you can use with it. So there's an intro track that'll explain all of that. I had a lot of clients, though, who are very shy or insecure about getting up and singing, no matter how hard we try with them. And so you can also listen to it and get the healing frequencies with that without singing from it. And in fact, I have a funny story. I'll be a real quick brief on it. I had a client come into the studio who I wanted to test her energy with it, and she was having a really bad day. And so I did the studies on her before, and then I had her go in and I wanted her to sing to the track, and she refused to sing to the tracks. And she just started spouting out, "Oh, I hate this, my bad boss, this and that and that." And I thought, oh, it's blown the studies on this test. It's not, I've never had this happen before. And sure enough, because she was in the frequencies and may not have been singing and using her voice, she was able to, you could see the difference right away on that. So that's one of my testimonies that I have on that.
Well, that's great. And, one of the purposes of this show, Ted, is to let people figure out for themselves how to help themselves. That's really what it's about. And it's wonderful to be able to get that information. And one of the methods of healing that I use is the healing codes. I've mentioned that earlier. And that's about eliminating that negative self-talk at a cellular level. And if you can learn how to use vocal toning, even if you're in the shower, in a private place, this will even advance the healing that you can receive. So, boy, I tell you, we're going to close out with another 2-minute segment of your music, and it's Queen of Fairies, and it's at 758 hertz. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you like gardening, and that's kind of where that one came from, is that I believed it was really connected with Earth and all the mysticism and the frequencies of that. I have a little girl who loves fairies, and I mean, who doesn't like Tinkerbell just about? And so I just started kind of tapping into these frequencies, and that's how that one came out, and it was kind of touching base with some of my Celtic heritage.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Well, before we go into that music, I want to let everybody know that the ancient texts, it was a very wise man that said, guard your heart, but above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And you know what, folks? That includes vocal toning and singing and music. So, let's listen to Queen of Fairies, and until next week, blessings.
Thank you again for taking the advice of your heart and tuning in to The Healing Whisper, A Return to Peace. Please join your host, Dr. Marianne Chase, again next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. We hope to talk to you again next week.